Welcome friends, welcome to Papaya Coders. We are back again with a new video. In this video, we will be discussing somewhat about asynchronous API calls. Means we will learn how to perform two API calls simultaneously using single.zips, which is RX Kotlin, and we will learn few more things. So I hope so you have seen our latest video, which is this Razorpay payment gateway, and you have checked out our all the courses which are available over here. You just need to come over here in the playlist section and you can see all our playlist. I would suggest you guys to watch our Spring Boot videos and Jetpack Compose videos. And if you want to learn Android Jetpack Compose, then I would suggest you guys to watch this series, which is this Master Android Development Crash Course. If you don't have enough time, you can go and watch this series. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, let me just give you a quick introduction what we are going to make in today. So basically we are going to make a movie app, which is like this is going to fetch the movies for us. We are going to make an API call to the TMBDB, which is a movie database. We will use that movie database and we will learn a very new method for dependency injection, as in our previous videos. If you have seen our crash courses and the other videos, we were using Dagger Hilt. But from this video, I will teach you one more method for dependency injection, which is Koin. So we will see what this Koin is and how it is used, how we can do the dependency injection with this Koin one. And we will follow the MVVM architecture. As you can see, we have our data layer over here. Then this is our dependency injection layer and domain layer. Then this will be our presentation layer. And to make sure this project will be in Jetpack Compose. We won't follow the XML one from now. If you want to learn XML, we have some dedicated crash course in our YouTube channel. You can go and check them out. So this would be our data layer. In this, we will have an API, a mapper, a model, and repository modules, sorry, packages. And then we have our dependency injection layer. We will set our third-party dependencies over here. Like you can see, we have used Koin here. So we will learn first of all what is Koin and why it is used, and then we will understand what is the use of all of these layers, and then we will get to the coding part. Okay, so let's get started. So let's get started with this Koin. So think of Koin as a lightweight helper that manages your app dependencies, the object and classes of your application needs. Means I hope so you have a basic understanding what dependency injection means. Suppose you have a class which is dependent on few more classes for its working. So that class is dependent on them. Like you have a class called car. So your car is dependent on this engine and tires for the working. I'm just giving an example, like if you have a class car and so it is dependent on engine and tires. Like that in real world, the car isn't dependent on two things. There are many operating parts of the car. So every time you want to use a car, you need to create an instance of it. So it does not have a valid sense to create that instance every time a car is being created. Like every time a car is created, you need to create the whole engine, you need to create the whole transmission. So it isn't a valid approach, right? Instead, what we can have is like a company who manufactures the engine or who manufactures the transmission. So you can just borrow it from there whenever whenever you want to use it. So this dependency injection goes on with some same idea. This Koin helps us with the dependency injection. It's like a waiter who exactly know what each table needs. Just imagine you are in a hotel and there are waiters, right? So this Koin is like a waiter who knows exactly what each table needs and how to bring it. It knows very efficiently. Okay. So it is written in pure Kotlin. This uses simple Kotlin DSL, means no code generation is there. It is a runtime dependency injection tool and it is very easy to learn as compared to Dagger Hilt. Okay. In comparison to Dagger Hilt, it is like a sophisticated restaurant manager system. Like we had this Koin as a restaurant waiter, this Dagger Hilt is like a sophisticated restaurant management system. It is more complex but offers more feature and compile time safety. Means if you want to have a scalable project which is very large, then I would suggest you to go with this Dagger Hilt. But yeah, if you have some smaller applications which is not going to scale that much, then Koin is also a very good approach. Okay, this Dagger is built on the top. Dagger Hilt is built upon of Dagger. This is an official Android recommendation that yeah, you should use Dagger for dependency injection. The key complexity is that Koin is very simple to use and minimum boilerplate. Hilt uses more complex setup, requires more annotations in real life. Koin runtime dependency resolution, and Hilt is a compile time dependency resolution, which is faster at runtime. Okay. For error detection, Koin errors are found at the runtime, and Hilt mostly errors are found at the compile time only. Okay. So if you want to learn Koin, then it is a gentle learning curve. It is very friendly for beginners. So if you are a beginner, I would suggest you to go with Koin. But in Hilt, it is like a very steep learning curve. So you need to learn the concepts, like what are those annotations, singleton classes, provides, @module, @Hilt view model, what is this application class. Okay. So you need to learn all those things. As I suggested, this Hilt is used when you are building a very large scale application and working on a team project that needs a strict dependency management. So I would suggest you to use Hilt there. You need to have the compile time safety. So that time Hilt is preferred. And for Koin, when a project is like with very quick deadlines or you want minimum setup with quick implementations, like you don't have much implementations when you use Koin, it is very minimum. I would suggest you to start the things with Koin to understand the dependency injection in Compose, then practice few projects and understand the difference between some singles and factories, and then move on to Hilt whenever you need a robust features. Okay, both the frameworks are good enough. I would not say that yeah, this one is better, that one is better. It just upon our use case what we want. Koin is simpler, but it offers less rich features. Hilt is more powerful, but it requires more setup. So it is totally upon our hand that what we are going to implement inside our application or what is the demand of our app. Okay, so now let's start our thing. First of all, I would like to create a new project file. Let me just show you. Let's create a new project file. Simply let's name it movie app. Select this compose one. This would be our movie app. Let the Gradle build, let all the files sync. Okay, so now it is just about to complete this loading, and this all this dependency setups just depends upon your system requirements. Like if you have a very good system, then it will not take much of your time. I would suggest you guys to have a approx amount of 16 gigabytes of RAM in minimum to run the Android Studio. Okay, so this thing is set up. The first thing which I want you guys to do is to set up our dependency section. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the dependencies which I want you guys to include inside your application. Okay, the first one shall be this architectural components, like we can add lifecycle and activity. Let's add those things. Just come over here and you can simply pause the video and copy these dependencies, or all of this is provided in the GitHub link which shall be provided in the description. You can get it from there. You can just go to the GitHub link and simply copy these things. Then we will be needing this retrofit for the networking. I hope so you are familiar with retrofit, and this is like a third-party library which is used for the API calls. Then we have to import the Rx Kotlin. Now what is this Rx Kotlin? We will understand this in the runtime, means when we will be coding along. Actually, in simple words, suppose you have an API and you want to hit the two endpoints simultaneously. Like in our case, there is a movie endpoint and there is a TV show endpoint. So when we want to hit those endpoints simultaneously, then we can use this rx kotlin single.zip file. Okay, I will explain you there, don't worry. Then what we need to do is implement this shimmer effect, coil and glide for image loading. Yes, we are using both coil and glide so that we can get to it and get used to it, that how this coil thing works and how this glide things work for the image loading. And we are using this image loading, which is like a circular image. This is a custom one from here. And then last of all, we are going to use this Koin. This is the dependency for our Koin one. Rest, I want to ensure that you have the build configuration set to true. Inside this build feature, set this thing to true. And yeah, that is it, I guess. And we can change this thing to 35, I guess. Yeah. And we can implement this Kotlin capped also. Just come over here and paste these things. Okay, so I guess we are done from here. Now let's try to sync our project and see whether there is some error or everything is just on point. Give this thing some time. This is going to take some time because it has to download all these dependencies which we have just written over here. Okay, so in my case, everything is done. It was pretty fast. Now what we are going to do is create our packages. Now let's try to create our packages. First of all, inside our application module, come inside this. Okay, we are good from here. Inside this movie app, let's create a package. The package name shall be data. After this data package, what we need is a dependency injection package. Let us have that too also. After this dependency injection package, let's have something called domain. Then we will need a presentation layer. Actually, let's refactor this one. We can refactor this and rename. Let's name it as presentation. Okay, let's refactor this. Then what we shall have is few more files which we are going to create first of all, so that when the project is structured well, then it is very easy for us to implement the things, right? If we know in which package which file is placed, so it is pretty easy for us to work upon, right? So let's create inside the data package. The first shall be this API. We will need an API package where we'll do our API calls. Then after that we need a mapper. I will explain you what is the work of this mapper thing. Then after this mapper we need a model to define our data class, right? Let's have a model over here. Then what shall we have next? That is repository. Okay, we have our repository over here. That is pretty much for our data layer. Then what we want is inside this model, I want to have another package whose name shall be response. Okay, means all the data class which are related to this response, means whatever the response we are getting, so we will get this over here. Okay, like what was the data which is coming from the backend, so we can use that. Okay, so next is this dependency injection layer. In that we will have 3 modules actually, so we can directly make these modules. Let me just make it. The first one shall be app module. Then second we are going to have a network module, then a repository module. Let's create them. We have a network module, then last one would be our repository module. Okay, so inside this domain layer we shall have another package which is this use case. Let's add this use case. Then inside the presentation layer, now this is going to be a little bit of complex because there will be many packages. Now let's understand this. First of all, we will have a package whose name is details, because whenever we try to open a movie, or just let me give you a quick demo so that you can better understand this. Okay, just a minute, let me connect my emulator. So here's my emulator. Let me just open the application for you. Now you can see there. Let the movies load, just a second. So this is my main screen. As you can see, this is my home page, and similarly I have a TV show page where all the TV shows are listed. Now this is a page, like this is a home page which will fetch the movies and TV shows. Like when I'm in the movie tab, the API call for the movie is being made, and when I'm in the TV show, the API call for the TV show is being made. Now whenever I tap the movie, I can see a detail screen. So this package is this detail package. Inside this detail package, we will have two components. The component will be the header and the another one will be the description. Okay. So I hope now you are completely aware of what this detail package work and what is the work of this home package. So let's come to our code again. As we have this thing over here, we have our packages set up over here. As you can see, I have done the package setup so that we can save the time and we can start working on our coding part. Okay, so here we have our data package. Inside our data package, we have this API one. Then after API, we have a mapper. Then we have a model. Then after the inside model, we have a response data package. Inside this response, we have two kinds of response, which is this watch content list response. This simply means when the movie data is being fetched, so we are landed with some sort of result. Like let me just show you. It means whenever we try to make an API call, we get something in response. Okay, so that response is of a certain type, means we will get a response in a specific manner. Okay, so we need to map it. Let me just show you where it is. Yeah, API references. Then from here, let me just come down and show you. Not this one, I guess so. This one should be the one I'm looking for. Yep, this one I want. So whenever I'm trying to fetch for a movie, means whenever this page is open, like whenever this page is open or this TV show page is open, we are getting something in response. That response is an ID, a page, a result. A result consists of these few more things. Then we have number of total pages, then we have total results. So whenever we are trying to make our API call like get movies or get TV shows, so we are getting these four things: total results, total pages, and ID and page and result in response. Okay, so we need to store that in the response, and when this response is mapped, means whenever we try to open the detail, we have this thing. Let me show you one thing. Like in the main one, we have ID, page, result, total page and total results, right? But inside results, we have some sub data classes also, like this is adult, backdrop path, general ID. So we shall store these things in a separate data class. We will name it as watch content response, and the main data class will be watch content list response. And then we will convert that whole response into a single one, which is this watch content, so that we can use it everywhere. And for conversion, we will use mapper. I will explain you how this mapper is set up. Don't worry. Okay. Then we have this repository. Inside repository, we have a watch repository. Then we have our watch repository implementation. I will explain you why we have these two files. Like if there was a watch repository, then what is the use of this watch repository implementation? To be precise, we don't want to expose how the things are being called, so that's why we are using an implementation file. Means how the data is being fetched shall be written over here, and our application must be aware of this only. Means our application will know, yeah, there is a watch repository, but it exactly don't know how the things are being fetched. So this is a part of abstraction we will get to know. Then in the dependency injection layer, we have app module, where we'll set up our modules. Then we have a network module where we'll try to hit our retrofit calls and we will set up all the network calls which are required. Then we have our repository module. Then in our domain layer, we have a use case mod package. Like you can see, this is the domain package. Inside this, we have another package which is this use case. Then after, in the presentation package, we have the details package. Then we have the home package. Okay, so inside the detail package, now you must be aware when we open any class, so this is the detail package and this is the home package. Okay, then similarly we have some navigation. Inside that navigation we shall have our nav graphs and few more things to redirect the things. Okay, so our package setup is done. I hope you are able to manage this thing. You are making it along me. Please, I would suggest you guys to code this thing along me, because this will allow you to get more idea out of it. Okay, so I hope so you just pause the video and you have these packages set up. Then we have another package also, which is utils. We will have our unnecessary things, not unnecessary actually, the things which are not that much essentials over here. Okay, so this is our whole package setup. You can stop the video and make the whole packages, then we will start working upon. Okay, I hope so you have stopped the video and you are ready for our project setup now. Okay, now the first thing which we want to do is to set up our dependency injection layer. In this dependency injection layer, I want you guys to come in the network module, and inside this network module I want you to set up the network calls, like how the network calls shall be made. For that, the first thing which we need to do is make a val. Let me just come over here. Let's have a val. The name shall be network module. Let's name it as network module. Okay, and this module will be of type module, and this shall be provided to us by Koin. I hope so you have completed the dependency setup, like these are the dependencies which we need. I hope so you have set up all these things. Okay, so let's come over here. We need a network module, which is a type module which is provided to us by Koin. Then what we need a type single which is provided to us by Koin. Don't worry, I will explain what this single is and what this factory is. But for before that, I need you guys to copy some sort of code, like you need to code it along me so that you can understand it better. Okay. Now what I want is to set up a single over here. Now what this single is, I will explain you. Inside the single, I need two methods. The first one is provide the auth interceptor, and then we will have another single which is like provide the OK HTTP client. So first of all, let's try to set up the provide auth interceptor. So we have this provide auth interceptor. We will define this later on, like after declaring all of them. Then we need another single. This will be provide OK HTTP client. Yeah, let's complete this code. This was the autofill code. Okay, so we have two methods set up over here. One of them is provide the auth interceptor, and the another one is provide the OK HTTP client. Now we want to set up our retrofit builder. We will define these methods just after this. Before that, let's set our retrofit builder. That shall be also inside this single. Let's have our retrofit dot builder. I hope so you know how to set up the retrofit builder, because it is similar everywhere. Like whenever you want to have the retrofit builder, this will be of type same. And what we are going to do is to pass our base URL. Then we need to add a converter factory. Then after converter factory, we need to add a call adapter factory. Okay, so let us copy this code which this thing is suggesting us. Let's import this JSON converter. After this, what we need to do is to add a call adapter factory. Now this call adapter factory is Rx Java call adapter factory. Let's import this thing. And after that, let's try to remove this thing because I don't want to actually pass my base URL from here. Or we can do this thing, it's not a big deal. Let's pass it over here. Then we need to have a client. That client shall be get. Okay, so we have this retrofit builder setup over here. Then the next thing which we need to do is create the instance out of it. Let's have another single. Inside this another single, let's have a get query. The query will be of type retrofit, and retrofit dot create. And what we want to create a watch API class dot java. Okay, so now what we need to do is to set up our auth interceptor and our auth OKHTTP client. Okay, so let's come out of this and have a private function. Let's name it as provide auth interceptor. So after this auth interceptor, let's have another interceptor. Means this will be of type interceptor. I will explain you what is the actual work. To be in short and concise, this methods actually parse the API key along whenever the network call is being made. Like whenever the network call is being made, this attach the API key alongside. Okay. Now from where we will get the API key, I am just going to tell you in a minute. Let's come over here. We need to set up the interceptor. Like as the name suggests, interceptor, like it is intercepting something to add something. Okay. Let's have a val name original. This will be of type chain. Then let's have a val another original URL. And this thing will be of type original.url. Then afterwards what we need to do is to set up this URL and call it and provide our API key. Like val URL is equal to original URL dot new builder dot add a query parameter. Means whenever this query is being made, we need to add a parameter which is API key. And let's set up our API key. I have my API key with me. I will tell you how you can get this thing. So this is my API key. Then afterwards what we need to do is simply build. Then afterwards we need to have a val request. Now this val request shall be equal to original dot new builder. We need to pass the URL over here. Okay, after this thing what we need to do is chain dot process the request. Very simple. Okay, now let's understand what this whole method means, and then we will come to know that how this API keys come to us. So what I want you guys to do is to come over this website, which is this TMDB, developers.tmdb section. Then inside the API reference, we need to get our API key from where we can make our API calls actually. Okay, let me just show you. Okay, just a minute, let me see where was this API key from where I fetched. Okay, so as you can see, I have my API key over here. I will simply copy my API key from here and I'm going to use it over here. Okay. Just a second. Actually, you need to register yourself before you can get the API key. I hope so you have registered to this website, because this is a free resource which we can use for this movie collections. Okay, you can just come over here and register yourself, like I have an ID over here. Then we can use this API key over here. Let me just see where it was. Okay, so see, you simply need to go to the home page of this URL, like the movie database.org. Then in the more, you have to just come to the API. Then we will simply get our API key. Okay, we will be landed somewhere here, and we can get our API key from here. Okay, just click over here. This is a hyperlink, API link, and then we will get this API key, which I'm going to use right now. Okay, so I have my API key over here. Now let's try to understand what is the use of this whole method, like what is the actual need to set this thing up. Just imagine whenever you are going to make an API call, the first thing which I want to do is to like attach my API key along it. Okay, so this is where this method comes in. Like whenever I want to make my API call, sorry, whenever I want to make my network request call, so I want to attach my API key. Like this creates an interceptor that add the API key to every request. This modify the URL to include the API key as a query parameter. Okay, the whole URL, it modifies it and adds a parameter which is our API key, and this is done before like every network request call has been made. So whenever the network request call has been made, this thing set up this. Okay, this things add the API key along that URL. And what this thing does is like a retrofit call. This is a retrofit builder. As you can see here, we have provided our base URL. This client.get, this gets the OK HTTP client from the Koin, and this is a JSON conversion. Like this is the JSON parsing over here. We are using the JSON converter factory. We can actually use a Moshi converter also. There are many converters which we can use. Then we have provided it the Rx Java support via this line. Okay, now the next method which we are going to set up is this provide OK HTTP calls. Okay, this thing will add the auth interceptor API key, and we will have our network timeouts over here. Let's make this method. Okay, now let's create another private method, which is this private provide OK HTTP client. Let's get started with it. Okay, then what this thing is basically going to do is we need to have the auth interceptor for the API key. Means this thing will take the auth interceptor as the input, cause we need an API key. Okay, let's have this as a parameter, like constructor auth interceptor, and this will be of type interceptor. Okay, now let's try to use this. This thing will be of type OK HTTP client dot builder. Now let's get started. The first thing which we need to add is the interceptor, which is obviously our auth interceptor, right? Then the next thing which we want to add is the another interceptor, which is HTTP logging interceptor. Means this thing is for logging. Okay, let's try to apply this. I think so we need to import this first of all. Okay, this was my mistake. We need a capital H. Now we will be able to import this. Let's try to import this thing. Okay, now let's have an apply block over here. Inside this apply, we need a check, like if we are in a debug mode, then we want to have the level dot logging interceptor level, which is the body, and else we want to have none logging interceptor level. Let me just copy this thing. Or let's have, if the build configuration dot debug. Okay, so this is the if block. Like if we are in the build mode, with like in the debug mode, then we want to use the HTTP logging interceptor, else we want to use the none one. Let's import this build configuration. Let's close this if block. After that, let's have an else block. In this else block, simply we will have the HTTP logging interceptor level dot none. Okay, we are done from here. So this is our logging interceptor setup. The next we want to set up is the timeout, connection timeout net settings. Let's have the connection timeout. Let's it be 15 dot time units in seconds. Then we want a read timeout and a write timeout. That shall also be 15 seconds. Okay. Okay, I will explain everything. Now I know there are several questions inside your mind, like why are we actually doing this? Okay, so I'm just going to explain you the things. Now let's start. It means our this network module is totally set up now. We have set up the whole things. Now let's try to understand this thing. Like in Dagger Hilt, we have annotation. If you guys have worked with Dagger Hilt, then there is an annotation which is called @singleton, which is like to create the singleton instance of that particular class. So in Koin, we have the single block. This is a Koin DSL to create a single instance. Only one instance will be created and reused throughout the app lifecycle. Means we want to make one network call throughout the app, and it is not valid to make several network calls, right? This is the auth interceptor. So whenever the network call is being made, like it will be made only for once. So at that time, we want to add this query parameter, which is our API key along it. Now, what is this OKHTTP provision? Inside this OKHTTP provision, we have this get method. We can see we have this get. The Koin automatically injects the auth interceptor dependency. Like this OKHTTP client is dependent on this auth interceptor for its working. Pretty clear, right? This function is dependent on this one for its working. This get method will automatically inject the dependency which are required. Okay, now we have this retrofit builder, which is pretty clear. Dot base URL, all API calls will be appended to the this URL. Then we have this client dot get. This uses the OKHTTP client to configure. Then we have this add converter factory. This handles the JSON serialization and the deserialization. Then we have our add call adapter factory. This actually enables the RX Java reactive streams. And what is this RX Java? We will understand this later on in our project. Then we have this method, this single get retrofit. This creates an implementation of this API, which we are actually going to write. Means that will create an instance of the API, the retrofit dynamic proxy to create the actual implementation. Okay. Then we have our auth interceptor implementation. I hope so you are aware with it. Then what we are going to have is that OKHTTP configuration. I hope so you are aware for that also. Now let's try to understand the whole network operation. Like app makes an API call, the request goes through the OKHTTP client, and auth interceptor adds the API keys to it, and logging interceptor logs the request in debug mode. and then request is sent to the server, then the server responds, and the logging interceptors log the response, and JSON converter factory converts the JSON response to Kotlin objects. Okay, and we are going to make that Kotlin objects in our data class right over here. Okay, and then response is returned to the application. I hope so you have understood this API calling and how these things actually work. If you have any sort of confusion, I would suggest you guys to just go back and let's have a quick revision also. Okay, now the another thing which we are going to set up is this our app module. But before we set up our app module, we need several files and we need to have some application setup and we need to have some view model setup. Okay, I will explain you to it later on. Now let's come inside our watch mode API. Now let's set up our API, like from where we will handle our queries and everything. Okay, so we have completed our network calls. Now let's start this API call. Now since you all know API is made under this interface, and interface we need to have some API calls, like we need to have the API calls for the to get the movies, to get the TV shows, and then we will make an API call to get their details. Like whenever we want to tap the movie, like when we tap the movie, the detail screen opens and we can see the detail of the movie. Okay, so we need to have 4 queries. The first one will be to get the movies, second one will be to get the TV shows, and the third one shall be to get the details of the movie, and fourth one will be to get the detail of the TV show. Okay, now before that we move on to this actual API calling, what we need to do is to set up our data classes, cause this API is dependent on this data class. Okay, now let me just come over here. We have a response. Inside this response we have a data class whose name is watch content list response. Now from where we will get the data, like in which format we are actually trying to get the data. Like I have told you earlier, we have this thing. Let me just show you. Let's come over here and I will simply show you that how these things are actually coming inside this API. Let me just come over here. Yep, here it is. So here when we come to this, okay, JSON and JSON mapping. Okay, just a minute. Append to response. Not actually this one. Finding the data, I guess. Okay, just a minute. Let me see where is that page actually. Yeah, here API reference. My bad. So inside this API reference, we have this movies and details keyword over here. Means like whenever we want to get a movie, we will get few things in response. The first thing is, like you can see, an ID, then a page, then we will get some total pages, then we will get total result, right? Okay, and then inside this result we actually have few more objects, which is this adult, ID, original language, original title, etc, etc, etc. So means there is a sub data class inside this data class. So we are going to make that right now. Let's have a val page, and this val will be of type string. Then after, what we need to have is a val result. This thing will be of type list, and a list of what? The list of these things which we have just listed over here. Result is a list of these things till here. Okay, so we are going to map them over here in this watch content response. So it will be a list of watch content response. Okay, then the next thing which we want is to have the total pages and total results. Okay, let's have a total pages. And then another thing will be val total result. And this thing shall be of int. Okay, now we are good to go from here. Now the next thing which we are going to do is to set up the watch content response. This watch content response, now you actually know what shall be the data inside this. Let me show you once again. we will have all of this data over here. Let me just copy this thing from here. And remember, this should be like nullable, means this all the data which are coming, this data should be nullable, cause we might have or not have these things, means this is not sure that yeah, we are going to have these things definitely. Okay, what's the error actually what we are seeing? Okay, just a minute, let me have a look over here. What's the actual error? Okay, I think so that was just an ID error. Now that thing is resolved. As you can see, it was nothing much. Let's inline those things. Okay, so we have our response ready. Now we have implemented that inside our watch content list response. Then the next thing which we want to do is like to normalize this response. Like whenever we get this response, we want to have convert it into a normal response where we can use everywhere. So that is our watch content data class. Okay, so this thing will simply contain the constructor fields like we will have an ID, a title, a poster URL, then we have a description, then we have a release date, then we have a type, and then we want to distinguish like whether it is a movie or not. Okay, so this thing is going to be pretty simple. As we can see, we have these things over here. So we are going to basically convert the response, like we are going to convert this whole response into a response of type this, like we are going to convert this whole response into this. Okay, so this whole thing, this whole response, like what we are going to have here, this whole response will be converted into a response of type this. Okay, means all of this response will be converted into this watch content response, and to convert that we actually need a mapper. So here where it comes the role of watch mapper. Okay, this watch mapper is basically going to convert the data into a specific type. Okay, I hope so now you have a little bit of idea like what are the things is going on here. Okay, let's try to convert it first. What we need to have is to have a function. This function will just map the data for us. We have a function map response to watch content. Means whatever the response we are getting, that shall be mapped to our watch content. So this thing will have something as a constructor which is input, and this input will be of type watch content response. Pretty obvious. We will have the response in type this, and we are going to convert, or we are going to simplify this to like this. Okay, so this thing will be extending the watch content, and then what we need to have is a very basic val to make a check whether it is a TV show or not, like yes. So let's have a val whether TV show, and this will be of type input dot first air date. If it is a TV show, then we must have a first air date. Then let it be a nullable. This should not be equal to null. Then what we need to return, this whole method should actually return us a response of type watch content code. That is what we actually want. And now we want to map the data. Actually we want to map the ID to input dot ID. Then what we need to do, we want to map the title, then we want to map the poster URL, like we want to map all of the things. We want to map the ID to the ID which is coming from here, then we want to map the title, then we want to map this poster URL, then description, then release date, then type, and whether it is a movie or not. We want to map all of these things over here. Like this is giving me some suggestion, but let me just tell you. Okay, so first we are making a check that whether it is a TV show or not. Then what we are going to do is we are going to map the ID which is coming from here to the ID which is in our watch content. So this is the work of the mapper. Now what we need to map, we need to map our title, the The title shall be this. Okay. Okay, the thing which I'm going to actually do is to just copy some sort of code to save the time. We are just mapping the things. Like you can see, we have mapped the input ID to the ID, like the ID which was coming from this content response to the ID of our watch content, then title, then poster URL. Like we have a blank URL if we don't have a input title or an input name. This is the Elvis operator. Like if we don't have this, then we will use this. And if we even don't have the name, then we are going to use a blank string. Okay. Then this is a poster URL. Then we have provided it a temporary path, which is just an empty image. The path will be occupied with the image which is being provided. Then we have the description to the input overview, like how this input overview come. Like we have this overview. This overview shall be mapped with the description which we want to show, and the release date or the first air date or first air date is related to TV show, and this release date is related to the movie show. So we need to map these things in the release date, and then we want to decide the type, if it is a TV show, else it is a movie. Now basically understand why we are trying to do this. Since we have two screens, map and TV show, as you remember, we have a tab over there, movies and TV show. So I don't want to create separate data class for both of them. Since the data is coming same, like data is pretty similar, and I don't want to create two data class separately and just handle the two synchronous API calls over there. Like that will create so much of mess. So instead of that, I'm just normalizing my data response. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just normalizing my data response so that I can pass the data into the similar fields for both movies and TV shows. Now, like every movie show will have the ID, TV, title, poster, URL, etc., 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 and every TV show will also have this same the things. Means both movie shows, both movies and TV will have these fields. So instead of mapping this whole data, like this data is for whole, like this data is for movies also and TVs also. As we can see, we have a release date. This thing is for movie shows, and this first year date is for TV shows. So this is a kind of whole mixed response in which include movies and TV shows both. So to separate them, we should have two data class again. Then that is a very hectic work. Instead, that we have just mapped it into similar fields. Like movies can also use this, and TV shows can also use this. Just we need to distinguish whether it is a TV show or whether it is a movie show. I hope this explanation was clear to you, like why we are having this mapper class actually, to avoid unnecessary files and to reduce the boilerplate code actually. Then let's have the method what we are going to use. The method will be func map response list to watch content. Okay, then we have to provide it an input. The input shall be the list of watch content response initially, and then what we are going to do, this thing will extend the watch content list, and then we are simply going to return input map of map response to all the data. Means what we are doing, we are simply mapping this data, means we are mapping this data to this data to this, and this data to this via this function. Like this function is to just map the, is just function is to set the things up, and this function is to map the whole things. Okay, I hope this was very clear to you that why we have this mapper function and why this things, like why all these things are set up. Okay, now let's get to our API call and start our API call what we wanted to do. The first thing which we want to have is this get method. Inside this, what we want to get, we want to get the popular movies. Okay, movie slash popular. Okay, then after that, let's have the method get movie. Okay, get movies, and this method will have a query to fetch the movies according to the language and the page, and it will return us something of type watch content response. Like as we can see, this thing, this movie one, this get movie method is actually going to return us of type watch content list response. Means we will get a page, we will get a result, we will get total pages, and we will get total result. And inside this result, we have all these fields, like all the detail about the movie and etc, etc, etc. Okay, so this thing was for the TV. Similarly, we have this method for TV shows also. Like for the TV shows, we will get a query. Like we have the same query. Let me just get the things for the query for the TV shows. Just a minute. Okay, like this one was for our movies. Like we know, this method was for our movie, and then and this is using single. Like, and the single is provided to us by RX Java code. I will make you understand why we have used single. We will use suspend functions also. And then similarly, we will have a TV show query list. Like this TV show will have the same things, and the response is also going to be the same. Okay. And then what we are going to do, we are going to fetch our details for the movie with the help of the movie IDs. And what we are going to do is to provide it a path which shall be the movie ID, and then we have the query which is same. Then similarly, we want to have a TV object to get the TV details, like TV shows details. So these are our four methods which we require. The first method was to get the popular movies. Then that will return us a response of type watch content list response, and then further I know you know the story. Then similarly we have a response of TV shows. Then we have something for details of the movie and the details of the TV shows. Okay, I hope now you have understood this thing. Now the next thing which we are going to do is to set up our repository. Okay, now let's come over here and try to set up our repository. This is how we are basically going to make the call. Okay, I almost forgot. I need to explain that this single method and why we are using the suspend method. Like why we can use the single method also, right? So why we are actually using the suspend method over here. Okay, let's try to understand this now. Actually, we are using this single RX Java method for the list operations. Like single is being used over here. As you can see, single is being used over here, like because it is very good for paginated data, like the data which is coming in the form of sort of pages. It helps with the handling of the continuous updates, provide a built-in error handling, and it is very useful for the operations that are needed to be cancelled or which are cancelable. It is good for list operations that might need transformation or filtering. Like we have the list of movies, so we can filter them accordingly. We can have a search box over here, and we are using this suspend method over here. Like you can see, we have this suspend function over here because it is simpler for one shoot operation. Like details usually need just one request, right? We don't want to fetch the details again and again. They just need a one request, so there is no need of stream operations. Okay, so that is the basic difference between why we are using a single over here and why we are using a suspend for the details. Like when we are trying to get the TV shows or the movie shows, so that can be paginated, or we can filter some movies, or like we can search for some specific movies. So that's why we are using the single RX Java method. But since the details are only shoot up once, means whenever we are trying to press that detail of the movie, like we have the movies in a grid, so when we are trying to fetch for a particular movie, so then that details API call is being made. It will not be made several times, it will be made only once when that detail page for the specific movie shall be opened. Before that, no API call to the TV show shall be made. So that is why we are using our suspend function, and that is why we were using single over there. Okay, now I hope that was very much clear to you, that why we are using single and why we are using suspend functions. Okay, you can actually comment down and we will answer your queries. If you have any queries related to this, just don't worry, feel free to comment box is your thing. You can just give us the reviews. And guys, one thing I want to say, that it's been approx an hour, like 45 to 50 minutes, and I'm speaking continuously. This thing takes hell lot of efforts. Please just I request you guys to subscribe the channel and like the video, cause me bringing such content like one shot videos for a whole application is like 5 to 6 hours of work, rigorous work, depending upon the complexity of the app. And we are teaching you here the things which are not commonly available on the YouTube. Like you can't find this RX Java method and this Koin thing in the YouTube like very easily. So it is very good to find such a good explanation. So please subscribe the channel and share the video as much as possible. This really motivates us to bring such more content. Like really, we will have a separate playlist on this Koin one. I will explain this. I will definitely have a video within few days to explain what is Koin and how is dependency injection made simpler using Koin. Okay, now let's move forward to our watch repository. This watch repository will have a method to get the movies and TV shows. Like we are going to have only one method to fetch the movies and TV shows. Okay, then we will have a suspend function to get their details. Like we have two methods over here. One method is to get the TV shows, and another method is to get the content or like to get the details. Let's have the method get movies and TV shows. Okay, so we will have another this single method. I hope so now you understood why we are using single, right? Since this is a pagination call. Okay, so we are going to use pair and pair what? Just a second, I have a typo error over here. Since my keyboard is new, so my hands are not like pretty much set on it. I will get used to it later on as I move. So we have this get movies and TV shows. Let me just convert this T to capital. And we have the single pair list. This will be of type watch content. Like whenever we are trying to get the TVs and movie shows, so we will get the response in watch content. Okay, so I hope so now you know how this mapper thing is going to work. Like, okay. Okay, the next thing is what we want is to have a suspend function. This suspend function will be get content details. And this method will simply take the content ID and whether it is a movie or not, and then it will simply bring us a response. The response will be of type watch content again. Okay, we need to provide it the content ID. This shall be of type string, and whether we need to provide it whether it is a movie or not. Now let it be a boolean. Okay, so we are good to go from here. Let me just make it looks pretty much prettier. So we can use refactor. Then I have a third party dependency over here which is format with Clint. So this thing will just simplify this thing. This is a plugin which you guys can install actually. Let me show you. This is the plugin which I use. Like I love the themes. So yeah, this is the Clint one which I basically use. Okay, so this watch repository is set up. Like we are going to get the movies from this method. Like we have this method set up. We want to get the movies show, we want to get the content details, and this is how we are going to get the response. But I actually don't want to show like how I'm going to get the movie. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to set up a watch repository implementation, and this is going to be a very important class. Let me tell you, this will take something like watch mapper and the API keys, and this is actually going to make the API call. Like we are going to use our watch mode API over here, and then we are trying to fetch the movies and TV shows, and then we are trying to show them. Like we are going to use these methods like get TV shows and get the content details inside here, and we are going to override them basically. So these two methods will return us a type of watch content. Now how they are going to return means the logic is not defined over here. Means we are just defining the methods in the watch repository like that. Yeah, this thing shall be done. Then how these things shall be done will be implemented over here. So we are actually hiding the methods, the actual methods which who are doing the work, and we are just exposing the working, like, yeah, this is how you do the work, but we are not actually exposing the real thing. Okay, so this is the kind of abstraction thing which we are trying to do. That's why we have these two files, watch repository and watch repository implementation. Okay, so this watch repository implementation will basically take two things. The first one of them is the API, and the another thing is the mapper, as it is going to suggest me. Let me just shorten the name to API, and let me just shorten the name to mapper. Let it be small. Yeah. So we need these two things for our working. Now this thing will return us something of type watch repository. And what is watch repository actually type? Oh, we need to implement this methods. Okay. As soon as I write here watch repository, this shows me an error. Like, we have to implement the member functions, which are these two things. As soon as we are going to import this, we need to import the member functions, like just simply import the methods. Let me just see whether I am seeing an option or not. Yeah, implement members. Simply implement those members. Now we will define over here that how we are going to get the movie. First we will get the response from our API. That response shall be converted into the Kotlin one with the help of all this network module. Whenever we make a network call, the response shall be converted into Kotlin object from this OK HTTP client and auth interceptor, then and this retrofit call. Then what we are going to do is to map that data into watch content type. Then the data shall come in the form of this watch content list response and this one. So we need to convert it into the type of watch content. So we will use mapper to map our content, and yeah, we are going to make two API calls simultaneously using single.zip. This is the method of Rx Java. Like, we are going to map two API calls within a single zip. Okay, so this is the main thing which I was telling you, that this is the whole video, which is like, this is the topic this whole video is being about, to make two API calls synchronously and learn about the Koin. Okay, so now let's do this and learn how to make two API calls synchronously, or we can say simultaneously. Okay, now let's complete our watch repository implementation. So the first method which we are going to have is like this one, and what we are going to return from this method, like what this method is basically going to return us. Every method must return us something, right? But there are methods which don't return something, but like this method shall return us something which is of type watch content. Okay, so this method will return us a single dot zip, and the zip will be API dot get movies. And then after getting the movies, what we are going to do, we are going to map their response, and to map their response we are going to use the mapper dot map the response to content list, and whatever the result we are going to map, we are simply going to map it. Okay, so this was a very small and easy explanation, guys, like what is this thing actually going to do. Okay, so like that, now let's have another method which is API dot get the movies, get the TV shows. Actually, let's just annotate with comma, then let's use API dot get the TV shows. Then after getting the TV shows, we need to map it. Like, map using what? We need to map the response with the help of mapper and convert it into the watch content type. So means whatever the results we are getting, we are just simply mapping the result into the mapper, and then we are converting that response into the watch content type. And after that, we are just simply going to use this to show the data. Okay, I will explain you this thing just a minute. And instead of results, we should use S. It's actually results. Like in our data class over here, let me just have a look. It is results. Let it be results. Okay. Okay, so after this, what we are going to do, we need to get the movies slash TV shows, and then a lambda operator to pair the things. Yeah, this is what we want. Okay, I'm seeing some error. Let me just have a look. What is the error actually? It says it is required watch content response, and we are having the list of watch content response. Okay, so just let me see. How can I correct it? Okay, this was my bad. We need to use this method, right? We need to use this method, not this one. By mistake, I have used this one. The name is almost same. The name was map response list to watch content, and this was map response to watch content. We have to use map response list. Let me just call this method. Just a minute, let me have a look. Why this thing creating an issue? We have a function over here which is defined properly. Okay, I got it. Just remove this thing from here, and then let's come out of this. Yeah, now we are good to go. Now let's try to override this method, which is this one. Like we can see, override the get content details. So when the content details can be in two cases, like in one case the response can be for the TV, like content details can be fetched for the movie, and in another case the content list can be for TV shows, right? So let's have a return. So if it is a movie, like, or if is movie, then what we want to do is, like, we want to have the mapper dot map the response to watch content, not the list. Remember, map the response to watch content, and then we are using the API dot get movie details method, and we need to provide the content ID to fetch the movie details for that specific movie, and then let's convert it to int. Okay, and after that we need to have an else block. For that else block, what we need is, means whether if it is not a movie, then definitely that is a TV show. Then mapper dot map the response to content list, API dot get the TV shows detail, and simply we need to pass the content ID dot to integer. Okay, I think so there is an error. Let me have a look. It is a string actually. Let me just go to the TV shows one, and the TV ID should be here integer, I guess. Here. Okay, then we are good from here. Now let me try to explain you what is the use of this thing. Like, what is this thing? This is very important for us, and this is clear to you. Like, we are mapping the response whatever we are getting, and we are hitting the API call. Like, this things requires the response to show it. Like, the response shall be get from the API. Like, this method requires a map response. This method, this one which we have created over here, this things require a response of type this. Okay, so from where will this data come? This data shall come from the API, right? So we have just passed the API right over here. We can actually create variables and then we can use it over here, but that was very unnecessary. We can directly use it over here. Okay, let me explain you one more time. Whenever we are trying to get the detail for any movie or any TV show, okay, so this method is called from the mapper dot map the response to watch content. Obviously, the data which we will get from our API will be of type this. So we need to map it to of type watch content. So how we will map? We will map it using the map the response to watch content. Pretty clear? Okay. Now, this method actually requires an input of type this. This map response list requires input of type this. Now, from where in the world are we going to get this response? Obviously, from the API. We are going to get the ID, title, etc., etc., from the API only. So we have simply just made an API call over here to get our response. Okay. We have get the response from the TV show and we have passed it to the get content details. Okay, I hope so you have understood. Now let's try to understand what this whole thing, like what is this zip one, what is this thing actually does. Okay, and how in the world are we trying to make the API calls, two API calls in simultaneously, like how the things are working. This Rx Java method which we can see over is single zip. This returns a single that emits one pair, means this thing emits a single, means this things give us a single that emits only one pair. The pair contain two lists, movies and TV shows. This is a pair contain two lists, a list of movies and a list of TV shows, like we can see over here. This method returns us a single of and single and emits a pair of two, a movies and a TV shows, like we can see it emits a pair of movie and TV shows. Okay, each list contains watch content object, means the movie will be also of type watch content object and this TV shows will be also watch content object. So we have this thing in common. Okay, then afterward we have this single dot zip operation. This zip combines the multiple singles into one. Okay, hope you understood. Like we are making the API calls for the movies also and for the TV shows also. So this zip thing combines the API calls, means this zip combines the multiple singles into one, waits for both the operations to be completed and only emits when the both are successful. Okay, so means we are trying to get the API calls for the movies like here, and then we are trying to make the API calls for the TV shows, and after that both of the response are completed, like we get the response for both of them, then only this things returns us. Okay, this thing here makes an API calls for the movie, map response to the watch content list and transforms the whole flow, like this is used for the flow transformation as I told you. Then this API call is being made for the TV shows and then for the movies. Then lambda receives both the results. As you can see, lambda receives both the results and creates a pair that contains both the lists. I hope you have understood. Like the function is started and then we try to get the movie and we try to get the TV response simultaneously. Then we are mapping the movie and the TV results. Then we are combining the results to show them. Both the requests start simultaneously. Procedure happens in parallel. Results are combined at the end. The benefit is like we can have the parallel execution and we can handle the single errors, like whatever the error is there is a single error, not so much of errors. Then this is a very clean combination and this is very memory efficient. Okay, now I hope this thing was clear to you, that which is this watch repository implementation. This was pretty simple, I guess, right? That it was looking complex, but it isn't complex, right? Okay, now we need to go inside our domain layer. Inside this domain layer, we have this use case package. Inside this use case package, we are actually creating two files. With the first one would be the get content detail use case, as the name suggests. Let me repeat it. Get content detail use case mean what is the use case of get content details, and then we will have a get movies and TV shows use case. So like what is the actual use case means where we are actually using that thing. Okay, so this is how like the things will go on. Okay, now let's create a class file. The first one shall be get content detail use case. Okay, this is get content details use case, and the another one which we need is get movies and TV shows use case. Okay, so this thing is completed now. First of all, let's try to understand what is the use of this class. It means like where are we actually going to use them? Let me tell you, we are going to use them inside our app module. Here we will define all of our applications and then our use cases. Then we will use it in our view models. Okay, this thing shall be used inside our view models. We will understand it how the things are being connected. For now, just simply copy the code. Like you can ignore everything, you can just copy the code. I will explain everything. Okay, now let's get here. Inside this, what we want is that this thing is dependent on the repository for its working. So let it be the constructor private val repository, and the repository will be of type watch repository. And then what we want is to have a suspend operate function, like it is already suggesting me some sort of data, which is totally correct. Now let me just import this thing, and then I will explain you what this thing means. Okay, now let's try to understand what this whole code means. Like the single responsibility of this whole class is each use case performs one specific business logic. Like this use case have just one work to do, and what is the work? Its work is to return the content details which shall be fetched from the repository. Like we have our implementation, this was our watch repository, this shall be exposed everywhere where we want to use it, and this is our watch repository implementation. Since we don't want to expose this, you can see this is not currently being used anywhere. This shall be used inside our module only. So we are exposing our watch repository. Like this is the method defined over here, and we have no information that how these operations are being performed and where their operations being performed in the implementation one. Okay, so we are exposing this interface like wherever we want to use our watch repository, and this interface is also exposed up to a limit. Okay, actually we don't want to expose any file inside our application which is related to our API calls. Okay, so inside this class we are just using our repository.get content details, and we are just simply trying to get the content details from the APIs. Okay, this is a part of clean architecture. Okay, let me just inform you, this is a part of clean architecture. This only the single responsibility is to just get us the content details from the repository, and how the details shall be fetched, we know it, that thing is implemented in the watch repository implementation. So there is no need to take care of the code like how this thing are going to be performed. So all of this thing is just being performed in the watch repository implementation. Okay, and we shall use our watch repository wherever required. As you can see, this is used in inside our get content detail use case. Similarly, we will have another file, this get movies content detail, get movies and TV show use case. In this we will have the watch repository again as a constructor, and we will return the repository dot get movies and TV shows. Like we will use the this method, get movies and TV shows. Okay, okay, now let's try to implement this thing. This would be very small. Just let me just copy some sort of code. Okay, so this thing is resolved. Let me just import the watch content, and let me import the watch repository. So what this method is doing, this class is basically taking the repository and just returning me the method from my repository. Since I don't want to expose my repository, that's why I'm using this. Now this thing shall be used inside my view models and my app modules further. So my view models will deal with these things. They will not deal from these files because these are the core files from where the API calls are being made. Like I will use this inside my API call. So my API will deal with this method to get the data. Like API will trigger this one. Yeah, please get me the data. Yeah, dude, please get me the data. So this method will be triggered. And this method will go to repositories and it is dependent on it. So this method will say, hey, repository, please get me some data. And when it comes to repository, the repository says, okay, I can get you the data, but I need someone who can help me to get the data. And who is that someone who is going to help? It is this watch repository implementation. Again, let's try to understand it. It is, let me make you understand in a very layman language. Suppose you have a teacher and your teacher says, hey, listen Navdeep, you need to do this work. This is pretty urgent. I would say, yeah. And in our case, this teacher is the view model or the call from the API or the call from the UI. Okay. So as soon as we opens, like as soon as our app opens, imagine it when as the app opens, the opening of the app is can be compared to as the teacher commanding you, hey, I want you to do some work. So as soon as the app opens, UI opens, it informs the view model and view models trigger this method, like trigger this class. View model will be triggering this class to get the data. So view model will say, hey, get content detail use case. I want you to do something. Similarly, as the teacher said, hey Navdeep, I want you to do something. Okay, then you will say, yeah, I'm ready to do the work. So he will say, yeah, please get me this data. It's very urgent. So this will say, okay, I will get you the data, but actually I need my friend to bring you the data. Okay, so this thing will say, okay, take your friend. So this is me, and I'm referring to my friend who is repository to get me the data. And this friend says, yeah, I can definitely get you the data, but to get the data, I need two things. I like to get the data. I need a cycle or I need a motorbike to get you the data. And this motorbike or cycle is the watch repository implementation. Like this is how you bring the data. Okay, I hope you have understood now. This was the very easiest explanation literally guys which I can give you. Now let's come to our repository module and set up our repositories which is required in this. Okay, so let's come over here and simply create a repository module variable like we created for our network call. Like we have this now, this network module. Similarly, we are going to use this inside our repository module. Let me create. This repository module will be of type module, and this shall be provided to us by Koin. Then we will have a single, and the single will be of type watch mapper. Okay, and then we need another single which will be of type watch repository. Let me define the type, which is this watch repository. And what we are going to do, this thing is going to implement watch repository implementation, and we are trying to get the data from here. Okay, let me provide it. Get, this first method is to get for the movies, and then second is to get the method from the TV shows. As we can see that these things need us a pair, like for a movie and a TV show. So yeah, okay, we need to get the API and we need to get the mapper. So we are trying to get it. We are trying to get the API and we are trying to get the mapper, and bringing that data shall be managed by Koin. Means Koin is responsible to bring you all the data, bring the API and bring the mapper to this watch repository implementation. Okay, I hope you understood. So what the thing has happened, let me explain you once again. So this is a single method, like this creates a single instance of our watch mapper. Like we can imagine it, our watch mapper being initialized, and this watch repository actually needs this API and watch mapper to function. So this method will take care that this watch repository implementation file gets the API and gets this API class interface and gets the mapper one. Okay. So this was our repository module. Since you can see our repository was actually dependent, like my repository, this watch repository implementation was dependent on API and mapper. So I need to provide it the dependency. So how I am going to provide it? Via this, I'm providing it. Now what we are going to do is to set up our app module. Inside my app module, actually I need to set up all the factories like use cases and all the singles whatever are required to run my application. Okay, means each and every file shall be defined over. Like the first file which we need, like which is very important, is an application file, which is very important in this case. This is a watch application file, and we have on create method which is starting the Koin and providing the module setup over here. Okay, like this is the code for any application. This thing is going to be common. Inside our module, we need to provide all the modules which we have just created. The first module was this app module. Then we need to provide it the network module, and we need to provide it repository module. Okay, let me just import this, and let me import this too. Okay, and we will simply create an app module also, like telling the Koin that yeah, I have these modules and I'm going to implement this within my application. Like in Dagger Hilt, we have this application class from where all the Dagger annotations and things are set up. So here in this case, we have for Koin. Okay, so let's get inside our app module and create a val. Inside this app, which will be of type module, and this module will consist a single of what? Watch repository, sorry, watch application, and we will have another factory actually. And what is the factory? I will explain you why we need a factory and what is this factory. The factory is get content detail use case, and we will provide the content if whatever is required. And similarly, we will need another factory which is get movies and TV shows use case. Import this one also. Okay, now let me tell you one thing. What is this factory? And we need few view models also, which we will be defining later on inside our code. Let me just explain you. Okay, we need a view model. So how many view models shall we have? Like in our presentation layer, we have a home screen and we have a detail screen. So I think so this is very common, like we will have two view models only. One is for detail and one is for this home. So I will create this just right now. Before that, let me just define them over here, like view models, and not this one actually. Yeah, okay, let me see the Koin one where it is. Okay, let me import this thing. So inside this view model, what I need is to provide the view models which I will going to have. The first one is home view model. Yep, this is what we want, but not to get just a single one. And then we similarly need another view model which will be of type details. Okay, actually we need this view model right here, this Koin one. please note the dependency what we have. We will create this home model just right now. Okay, let's come over here and create inside this home file. Let's create a class home view model. Okay, and then let's have inside this detail screen, let's have a detail view model. Okay, so we have these things set up. Now let's come to our app module. Let's import them. Let me refactor this. It should be details. Let me just import this. Okay, now we are good. Now as you can see, we have this get one. So we will use this get method inside our view models. We will define our view models later on. Just for now, I hope so this is clear to you. Now since this is a detail view model, let me come over here. This detail view model will use the detail use case to fetch the data with the API and do all the tasks. So let's have a private val get content detail use case, and this view model is dependent on it. Like as you can see, as I have told you that this use case shall be used by our view models, right? This shall be used by our view models. Like now we need to pass it inside our view model so that they can utilize this thing. Okay, since our view models is only going to deal with the UI, and UI will ask the data for the API. So this content use case shall be passed to our view model so that yeah, they can ask the repository to get them the data. Like this is the outermost point from where the data can be asked. Okay, like this is the most outer point from where you can just say initiate the API call. Okay, and these all things are just the inner part. Okay, so let's pass it inside our view models, which is going to be very simple. What we need to do is just simply pass this as a constructor inside our details view model. And now let me explain you how the Koin things work. Okay, so now these detail view models need this thing for its working, means it is dependent on this thing. Okay, means this detail view model is dependent on get content detail use case for its working. So inside our app module, we have provided our home view model with this get annotation, and this thing is basically going to do is whatever the things are required by this home view model shall be provided to it by Koin. Okay, this Koin means this detail view model is requiring this get content detail use case. So it is the work of Koin to provide it the get content use case every time the need arises. I hope now you have understood how this Koin and how this dependency injection thing works. Actually, I know it is complex a little bit. It's not that simple, but trust me, guys, this Koin is literally very easy than this Dagger Hilt. This Dagger Hilt I have explained inside a crash course. You can refer to this definitely. I have tried to explain the crash course as easily as possible. Okay, it's saying that required view model found home view model. I think so there is some sort of import error. Let me see the import error. Okay, the import is correct. Let me just see any other sort of error which I may am facing right now here. It's saying requires a view model and we are getting a home view model and home view. Okay, I got it. We need to extend this too, na, right? We need to extend this as a view model. Yeah, now the error shall be removed. Let's see. Yeah, now this home details view model is okay. Now this home view model need what? This home view model needs the get movies and TV shows use case. So our home view model is dependent on get movies and TV shows use case for its working, and this thing shall be provided by Koin. Okay, now great. Now let's see our app module where it is here. So we have our all our modules set up. Like this is the factory which does the work, and we have the view model means whatever the things are required by these things means watch applications require something, this shall be provided by Koin. Get content detail use case requires watch repository to work on, so this shall be provided by Koin. Similarly, this also requires the repository which shall be provided by Koin. Now this home view models requires these use cases to for their working, so this shall be provided to the view models with the help of Koin. Pretty simple, right? Now let's come over here. Our detail use case are set up. Everything is now completed over here. Now what we can do actually is we can start the UI part. Okay. So from here we are going to start the UI part. Inside this detail components, the first component which we are going to have is the detail content page, means the section where the detail of the movie is written, like what is the movie and etc etc etc. So let us name it as detail content. Okay, so this will be our detail content component, and the another component which we need is a header, like detail header, what is the name of the movie and that back button which we saw, everything over there. Okay, so let us name it as detail header. Okay, so this is completed. Now inside the home, inside this we need one more screen which is the main detail screen, right? We need to have the detail screen. These are the components which we are going to use. Now where we are going to use those components? Inside the screen. So let's have a detail screen. So we shall have a detail state also, means like the data is loading or the data is in success state or the data is in error state. So we need to have a sealed class. If you don't have an idea about the sealed class, you can please comment me down or just suggest me which videos shall I make forward. Maybe I will cover this state management or some this advanced concepts like flow and everything in a separate video. Okay. Okay, let it be the detail state, and I'm going to simply copy some code which is very common. Just imagine this sealed class as an envelope. Okay, this envelope says that yeah, your detail state can be in these following states only, like the details can be in loading state, details can be loaded and that shall be stored inside our watch content, and or the details can be in error state. Okay, so like this three can be the states of your detail state, they can't be changed, which is pretty obvious, right? Your details might be loading. If the details are loaded, then the details shall be stored in the val content, and in which form the details are coming? Watch content forms. Okay, and similarly if we have an error, we are storing that message in val message, and then we will use it inside our view models and our UI part to display it. Okay, so we have this thing completed. Similarly in the home screen also we will have few components. Now this time the components are going to be pretty much, because this is the main screen, right? The first component which we shall have is the content grid, like the grid screen where all the movies will be listed. So let it be the content grid. Okay, this is our content grid. Then let's have an error content, like when there is some sort of error, then we need to show. This will be our error content. Then what we need to have, we need to have a top bar from where we were shifting like movies and TV shows. So we need to have that. Let's have another component which is home top bar. This would be our home top bar. Then we need a shimmer effect. till the details are being loaded, we can show a shimmer effect. So we can name it as shimmer effect. Then what we will have a watch content card, means when the data is being loaded into grids, so each card have a background and each card have a name written over there, right? So we need to have that card also, like how each movies are going to be displayed inside the grid, like that card. So let it be watch content card. Okay, so similarly we are going to display that whole thing inside a screen. So let's have another composable, which is home screen. All these files are of composable, so this will be our home screen. And similarly we will have a home screen view model, which we have already created. Then let's have a home state. This home state is actually this same sealed class, but this will be a little bit of different this time. And we can have one more thing inside this utilities. Let's create a enumerated class, which will be like what type of content actually we want to have. Okay, so let it be enum class and name it as content type. Okay, we will use this later on. And then inside this navigation, we actually need to create a nav graph, and then we need to show it. So let's create that also. Let's have the nav graph over here. And then what else we need? We need to have a screen. Okay, okay, so this is actually what we need. So let's configure our home state actually. Just a minute. Our home state will have the same. We will have a loading phase, we will have a success state, and then we will have a error state. But in success state we will have two things over here. The first thing is a list of movies, and the second thing is a list of TV shows. Okay, now let's start working on our UI part. Our backend code is done totally, and then we are going to deal with our UI and presentation layer from now. This is a pretty lengthy project, right? It seemed to be simple, but this is a little bit lengthy. And actually when we are working on this type of project, they will be lengthy. And let me remind you, this is a small project as we consider to the production level projects. They consist of various files. This is a very small project. So if you consider this a long project, then just imagine what's going to happen when you are going to see the fact in these production level projects. Okay, okay, so let me give you a little bit idea like what we are going to design over here. So this is the, let us open the detail content, like how the detail structure shall be structured. Okay, the detail content shall have a column, like this will have a header file where the name shall be displayed, like what's the overview, like what is the movie all about, what is the detail of the movie which shall be displayed there. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much we want to display. We want to have an overview and we need to have a description. So we are just simply going to map it inside a column. Okay, now let's do this. Or we can do one more thing, like we can set up the view models first, but this view model will require a, okay, let's do this. Let's set up our detail content screen first, then only we will move on to our view models. Okay, so the first thing which we want here is a function. Let's delete this. Let's annotate it with composable. Then we need to have a function detail content, and the content will take two things. The first one shall be the content, and whatever the content is there, that shall be of type watch content, right? And the second thing which we require is a modifier, right? This modifier will be of type modifier. Now let's try to write the method. First of all, I need to have a column. Inside that column I need some sort of modifiers. I want the column to fill the maximum size, and we want to enable the vertical scroll, and then we need to provide it some padding. Okay, let's fill the maximum size. After that I want to okay, I think so I imported the wrong modifier. I don't want to import this modifier. The modifier which we want is this compose UI1. Then fill the maximum size. After it, let us enable vertical scroll and provide the remember scroll state. Means it will remember the scrolling state. Import this method. Now what else we need is another method which is like we want to provide it some sort of padding. Let it be 16 density pixels, and we need to import this density pixels property. Okay, we are done from here. Now let's come over here and define the method. Inside that we want to have a header, like this shall be the content of all the screens. Now this will use the header file like what we have defined over here, detail header. So let's provide it. This was easy. So after the detail header, let's provide it some space. Let the spacer be inside the vertical state, like we want to provide some vertical padding. Yeah, this is what we want. After providing this required space, what we want to have is the overview section where we'll see the overview. Then let's have a column again. Let me tell you one thing, we need to have a very good imagination while designing the UI or writing the code for the UI. So you can keep the things designing. Like when I'm writing the code, I have the things in my mind, like yeah, I have to do like this, this shall look like this. So I have a rough sketch inside my mind, like how the things shall look. So I would suggest you guys to also have a rough sketch like how the things are going to look. So let me have the modifier, and then what I want to do is actually provide it some padding. The padding again will be in horizontal padding. Actually I want some horizontal padding which is 16 density pixels, and then I want some sort of padding from the bottom also. Let it be 16 density pixels again. Okay, we are done from here. Now what else we want is to set up two things inside here. The first text will show the overview and the second one shall show the content. Means we want to show a text written overview or description, and then we shall see the description to tell the user, yeah, this thing is showing us the description. Okay, let us provide it some alignment. Now this things looks good. Okay, now inside this, let's write our code. The first text we want to display is the text is the overview, and we want to provide it some style. The style shall be material, theme, typography, title, medium. Let the size be title large actually. Let's import this material theme first of all. Let me see the title. Yeah, this one, title large. And then what next can we have? We can have some sort of color, right? Let's have the color. The color scheme can be like primary. And then what else can we have? We can have some sort of modifier to provide it some vertical padding, or say bottom padding. Yeah, that's pretty much we want. So after displaying that, yeah, this is the overview for the movie or the TV show, we want to display the actual overview, right? So let's try to display it. Let's have another text view. Yeah, this is what we actually want. Inside the text, we want to show the content dot description, and then we want to have body large actually, and let's set the body large, and then what we can say, yeah, this is pretty much we want. Okay, then what else can we have? We can have some sort of spacer again to give some sort of spacing after this whole column, which you can see this is the whole column. After this column, let me provide some spacer again, and let me or copy this one only. Yeah, now let's refactor this once again. Now this thing looks pleasing to me. Now let's get inside our header file. Now what we need in this header, we want to display a image. The first thing shall be the image of the movie or TV show which we want. Then we want to show the title, and then we want to show the that release date of the movie or TV show. Okay, so imagine it along me. First of all, we need a column. Inside that column, how is this column? Column is like this vertically. So first thing we need to display is the image. Second thing, title. Third thing is the release date. Okay, so let us first annotate it with composable. After that, let's have the method detail header, and detail header will take the content, and the content shall be of type watch content. Let's import this thing. Now let's start writing the original. I think there is a typo error. Yeah, inside this, let's first of all have a column. Import the column, or actually let's import few dependencies. Import, like we actually want these things, like we want a padding, we want a column, we want a spacer. We actually don't need a spacer, but let's copy these imports so we don't need to import them always. Okay, remove this composable. We already have this. Now inside this column, what we need to have is the horizontal alignment, like we want to align everything horizontally aligned. Okay, let us provide it. Horizontal alignment is equal to alignment dot center horizontally. Now after this, let's write the code. The first thing is async image. Now this thing is provided to us by Koin Dependency, which we have imported. Now first thing we need to provide the model. The model shall be like means what is the image we are actually trying to display. The image is poster URL. Now from where does this come content? Like we have this poster URL storing the image URL for us. Okay, so we have our poster URL, then we want to show the content description. Let's show the content description to content dot description. Then another thing, let's have the modifier. Let me just remove this thing. This gave me some unnecessary code. Yeah, I want to fill the maximum width actually. Fill the maximum width. After that, I want to provide the padding. Yeah, that is pretty similar, but I want to provide it padding from the bottom only. Since I want to have some padding from the bottom, like image and the text shall have padding, so giving the padding at the bottom makes sense. Okay, so what else we want to have? We want to set the height of the image. I want to set the height to, let's say, 250 density pixels. Okay, and then what else I want to have is to clip the image, like to round the corner of the image. So we can do this thing, we can add a line, like let me show you. dot clip, and what I want to clip is material theme dot shapes dot medium, like rounded corners for the image. Okay, now the image part is done, and what we need to provide it is a content scale, like what shall be the crop type. So let us provide it a content scale. This should be equal to content scale dot crop the image to its to fill the image thing, like. Okay, now what we need to have, we need to have a title section, then we need to show the, what we can say, release date. Okay, so after this async image, let's have a text. Inside this text, the first thing which we want to show is to show the title, and then we want to show the style. And after showing the style, what we want to do is to have some color, like we can have material theme dot color on surface. And at last we can have some modifiers like padding from the bottom, so that another one don't overlaps it. Okay, so this text is almost completed. Yeah, this text is now completed. Similarly, we want to have another text view to show the release date. So let's copy the code, because this UI code literally takes a lot of time. Let's refactor this code to look beautiful. Okay, now this header one is completed, and this content, and this content is also completed. Okay, so now let's get inside to the detail screen, like how the things will look inside the detail screen. Okay, so let's first of all imagine what this detail screen shall take. The detail screen will show the details of the required movie or TV shows. Okay, so this is a use case. So let it convert to the function and then annotate with @composable. So the first thing which I want to have is this content ID on navigation back, and we need to provide it the view model. So before working on our detail screen, we need to have our view model set up, right? This I forgot, I'm sorry for this. So let's first of all set up the remaining components of our home screen, then we will work on our view models, then we will come back. Okay, so the first thing which we want in our content grid is to show the content items. So like we will have a lazy vertical grid, and then we can show the items in it. Okay, and upon click on the item, we want to pass the content ID to the content detail screen to show the content. Okay, let me just copy some sort of code to save the time for the UI, because writing the code for the UI is literally like a very hectic task, and it is very time taking. And since I am teaching you to have mastered things on the backend part, so it is not very recommended to have a very nice or very good looking UI. But in real life, I would say, yeah, please make very good UIs, because in applications, the main work is like how much the good your UI looks, the more the user is impressed. Let us import everything. Let us annotate it with composable. Now let's come inside this and try to understand, like this vertical grid will take the list of items which shall be provided to us by our API. Then whenever the item is clicked, we want to perform an action. Like first of all, we have the lazy grid. We want to set the column grids to 2, like we have 2 columns only. Then we want to show the content padding. We have some padding of 16. Then we are arranging it vertically and horizontally. And then the next thing which we want to have is the items. Like whenever the item is clicked, we want to pass the ID of that particular movie or TV show to the watch content card and display the things. Now what is this watch content card? Now this watch content cart is the actual small carts which we were seeing, where the movies and all of them were shown. Okay, the initial carts which we saw. So this is going to be a pretty lengthy code. This watch content cart will take three things, like first of all it will take the content as an input, then it will take like what shall happen when we click that card. So whenever we click that card inside the grid, detail screen shall pop up. So let us convert it to the function first of all, then at the rate composable. Then after it we should provide it with some, like we need the content, then we need an on click, then afterwards we need one more thing which is modifier, which is pretty common, right? Make sure to import this compose one. Now the first thing which we want to have is a card view. Okay, we want to have a card view. Inside that card view I want to show the name of the movie, and then I want to show the image of the movie or TV show. Then I want to show the like details, like when it was made, or like the title of the movie. Okay, so I want to have a card view. Inside that card view, like I have a card view over here. Okay, then after that card view I want to have a image. Okay, very good. Then after that I want to show my text. Okay, so I hope so you know what is box or what is the box layout. If you have any doubt, please you can refer to the Jetpack Compose crash course video which was in English. I have explained the basic components. In that I have explained box. Box is like an actually overlapping layout. Okay, so let me copy the code for the UI, and then I'll explain you. Let's have this text imported. Now let's try to understand this. First of all, we have a card view. Imagine a card in front of you. Inside that card we have provided some elevation, we have provided it some shape, and yeah, we have said that yeah, that card is clickable. So that only whenever card is clickable, then only we will be able to see the detail screen. So we have this card view. Inside that we have columns. Now columns are set up vertically. So what are the things we want to display inside the column? The first thing is the image, and then second thing is a text which shall overlap the image. Like we have the image, and in front of that image the name of the movie or TV show. So we have the column. Then we have a box layout inside the card, like to maintain the aspect ratio 16:9. Then we have the image set up over that box. We have set up the image. Then we have another box whose color is actually transparent. Okay, we have provided it a gradient, like from bottom it will be black and then from above it will be transparent, so the image can be displayed. Let me just show you, just a minute. Let me connect my emulator and then I will explain you. You can see the shimmer effect. We are going to implement this actually, and right now I think so there is some sort of error or some sort of delay in the API call. I don't know why. We shall be able to see the data very soon. Just a minute. Okay, there is some sort of error, like failed to connect to the API. There is some error related to API. Let me try once again. Okay, the app is now launched. As you can see, we are seeing the grid. So this grid is provided to us by grid layout, and this is the watch content card which we are seeing. Now you can see there's a slight black effect at the bottom. That you can see there is a slight black effect at the bottom of the image, and then we have the image and we have an overlapping text of the image. And then when we tap this, the detail screen opens, and detail screen there is a header. This header contains the name of the image, then we have the image, then we have like the details, and then we have this overview. Okay, now I think you can imagine the detail screen and the code what we have written. And we were here writing the code for this. We have this lazy grid layout, and we can see that there is a slight black effect over here. So that is why we are using the box layout to overlap the things. So basically we are having a box layout at the very base, and above that layout we are placing our image. And so we are having another box layout with transparent background and a gradient at the bottom, a little black gradient at the bottom for to display the name clearly. Okay, like we have the to maintain the constraint effect, like this is the base one. Then after this we have our image. After this image we have another box. In that we have a gradient to show the black effect at the bottom. Now I think so you can imagine that why we have this black effect at the bottom with this box. Then we are simply displaying the text and providing it the content title, like whatever the title we want to display, we are just simply providing it. Then we have a inbuilt code for the shimmer effect. Let me show you that shimmer effect. So that shimmer effect was all over the grid, remember? So we are going to implement that shimmer effect over the whole grid. Okay, so we have that shimmer effect over the whole grid, and yeah, that's what we actually want. For placeholder, let's import some files. I think so we need to add some dependencies. Yeah, exactly. So this shimmer effect is basically of color surface, and we are implementing it to the whole vertical grid. So this shimmer effect is applied to this whole vertical grid. Okay, let me just have a look. We have some sort of error, I guess. Now we are good. Now let's come inside the shimmer effect. So we have this whole lazy vertical grid column like we have over here, and we have provided the same specification, same modifiers over here also. And then what we want to show, that we want to show only 6 items loading for while. We can show as many as we want. And then we want to show a box layout. Inside that box layout we want to show the visibility to true, and we want to show the shimmer color. And yeah, that's what we want. And this placeholder, we want to have a library or a third-party dependency for our placeholder actually. Let me come to my dependency section. So I have the things for my shimmer effect, I have everything, but I actually want to have one more thing, which is this placeholder dependency. Just a second, guys. So let's have this dependency also. Yep, let's sync the project, and then we will be able to use this inside our shimmer effect page. Okay, the project is synced, and now we can see we don't have any error. We want to import this also. Yeah, so means we want to just show a placeholder. That is it. You can simply copy this code for shimmer effect. There is no something like any very deep logic or something like that. And then we want to have an error content. For this error content, this will be a simple column, and then we want to display a text that yeah, there was some error while fetching the data. And then we will have a button. That button shall be used to fetch the data again. Like we have this composable over here, error content. This error content will show us the message, and we will have an on retry method. We have a column. In that column we display the text. The text is the message or the error message which we will be receiving from our data state. And we have a button, which button states that simply retry or refetch the data. Okay, this is the error content one. So I think so we have everything set up. Now we want to set up the home top bar. Like home top bar will consist of two things. It will consist of a row actually, and that row will be having two data of this like content type. This will have a, let me just show you my content type. Just a minute. The content type will be movies and TV shows. Okay, So this home top bar will use this enumerated class to display the things. Okay, it will have a row simply, and inside that row we will have few options which I will explain you. Like when we are on the home screen, like when we are on the movie screen, then we want to fetch the data from the movies part API, and then when we are from the TV screen, TV show screen, then we want to fetch the data from the TV screen API. Means we want to handle the things differently. So we will handle that things in view model. Here we are just trying to display the data. Okay. Now let me just copy the code for this home spacebar. Let me import this content type, which is provided to us by the utilities. Now this home top bar have two things like content type, and whenever the content type is being selected, so we have a row. Imagine a row in front of you which is occupying the whole width of the app. Then we have provided it some sort of padding, and then we are trying to arrange it horizontally. Then content type dot values for each means whenever the button for the content type is clicked. Okay, just let me show you. Like we have a button which says we have the color like button colors, and then we have the container color, then we have the material theme color. Else we can use the surface variant, or we have some content color. The content color shall be primary content color, else we can use this surface color. Then we have some modifiers for the buttons, like this is the button one, like how we want to show the buttons. Then we have the text, we want to show the text of this thing. Okay, this home top bar will actually have two buttons, so we can have C arrangement spaced by, so we are spacing by two buttons with 12 density pixels. Okay, now let's start working on our view model since we have completed our this top home bar. So now let's come over the detail view model, and this detail view model requires this get content detail use case, which is provided to it by our Koin view model, as you can see. So means whatever the things which are required for this detail view model to function shall be provided by Koin, so we don't need to take care of that. Okay, so we shall start our thing. First of all, we need a val state which will just take care of the condition, like where is the data right now, like whether it is in loading, whether it is in completed mode, so like that. So we need an actual mutable state flow. The mutable state flow should have a certain type. The type should be of detailed state, and what we need further is an initial value. Since this is the mutable state flow, so we need an initial value. Let the initial value be detailed state dot loading, cause since the data is loading right now, right? Let the data be loading. This is private but mutable. Now we need to set up a public but immutable val. Let it be val state, and this state will be state flow, and the state flow of what? State flow of again detailed state, and then this shall be equal to state dot as state flow. Okay, let me have a look whether there is some problem or not. Yeah, change this to semicolon and colon, and we are done. From here we have created two val. One of them is private but mutable. From here the data which shall be changed by the API shall come over here, right? And then we will use this one to expose that data. Okay, now let's make a function to load the content actually. Okay, let's have a method function load content, and it will take the content ID, and this shall be of type string. And the next thing which we require is whether it is a movie or it is a TV show. So let's have a boolean, yeah, this one. So we can start writing the method. First of all, we need to set the state value to loading, which is already it is, but let's set it again. State dot value equal to detail state dot loading. Then after that we need to launch a view model scope. Inside this view model scope dot launch, what we need to do is have a try block. This try block will basically bring the data to us, and we will store that inside a content val. So this val content is equal to get the content details use case. So means this view model will use the get content detail use case to fetch the movie for us, and then set the val to success if we get the data, and else the state value is set to error. Let me explain what the thing is actually happening. Okay, the thing is that we have a method to load the data. Initially the state has been set to loading. After that we are trying to get the content and store it inside a val which is content. So we are using our this get content detail use case. Okay, we are getting the data from here, and from where this data will be coming, this data will come from our repository. Okay, so this is how the data flows. So the data arrives with a content ID, and whether it is a movie or not, then we are setting the content detail state to success, means this detail state is now success, and we are storing the content which is coming, which is in the form of watch context, inside a val name content. Okay, so we have stored the data. Now we will assign this whole data to this val, to this one, and to which this val is further assigned to this public but immutable one. So this val will keep changing upon the data when it is success or when it is failed, but this will keep constant, and we will use this further inside our UI. I hope you understood. Now let's get to our home view model. This will actually do the same work, just we are trying to use the movies and TV shows, so that we are going to fetch the movies and TV shows simultaneously. So as exactly what we need is to have few variables, which is that state variable, but in this case we will use home state flow because we don't want to use the detailed state flow. In this condition we want a home state flow. Home state flow have these two methods, like when the data is in success form we want a movie and a TV show. Okay, and store that inside different variables, movies and TV shows. Okay, so we have this same state. Then we need one more mutable state flow, which is like to define the content, like what is the type of content we are actually having. So one of them is like, let me show you, one of them is like content dot movies, and we are then storing it as a content type of movies. Initially, since it is a mutable state flow, so we have set its value to movie. Like this can be changing since this is the mutable one, so whether it can be movie or it can be TV show, so that depends upon the tab, on which tab we are. So we need to have a very specific thing which is called disposables. Okay, let me explain you what this disposable is. Let's just come over here. Disposable is a container that can hold multiple other disposables and offers overtime complexity for add disposables, remove disposables. So what this disposables basically means, let's understand this. Like disposable is a container to store the data. You can just imagine it like a container which we are using to store our data. Okay. Okay, let me explain you it in a better way. This disposable is actually used to manage the multiple RX Java subscriptions. Like this is used to prevent any sort of memory leaks and helps to properly clean up the resources. It allows batch disposals of the subscription. Like we have two subscriptions, movies and TV shows, so it allows them to be disposed in a batch. Like we will understand this. Let me just first complete the code. This is like a things to launch the subscriptions. Okay, so similarly we will have a function to set the content type. Okay, so we will just set we will have a simple method, like we are going to set the content type of our val. So let's come inside here and have a function inside this function is like set the content type, and we are going to set the content type whatever the type shall be provided to us. And this is showing me some suggestion which I actually want to have a method load the content. Means whenever this home view model, whenever the home screen is triggered, so we want to trigger a method which is load the content. So we don't want any delay, so that whenever this home UI screen opens up, we want to load the content. So how we are actually going to load the content, let's first understand this. Let's have the method load content, and let's define this. So what we are basically going to do, first of all, we will set the state dot value to loading. Yeah, this is actually what we want. Then after, what we are using our get movies and TV shows use case. Okay, we got it. Then we need to add a subscription. Then we want to subscribe on, just let me get this thing, subscribe on, yeah, this one. And what we want to subscribe, schedulers.io. I will explain you, don't worry, just give me some time. First of all, let me complete the code. Then I will explain you the whole concept, like what is the use of this scheduler and what is the use of this subscribe on. Okay. Then the next thing which we want is an observe on. Yep, this one, observe on. Inside this observe on, what we want to observe is like movie and TV shows. We are going to have a lambda method over here. Okay. Okay, then after this, what we want to have, like we want to handle the state situation. Like, so whenever we are getting the movies or TV shows, we want to set the state success, state dot value to success is equal to home state dot success. And when we are in this success state, we will have two things in return. The first one of them is movie, and the second one of them is the TV shows. Let me have some suggestions. Yeah, this one. Then after this, what we want to do is just let me show you. We want to handle some sort of error block. Okay. So when we are having some error, we want to store it inside the lambda. The error, when we got an error, then we want to store it like state dot value. This value should be assigned to home state dot error, and then the error shall be like whatever the error message what we have received, error dot okay, I think so. I have some sort of code error. I have missed a block, I guess, actually. Just give me some time. Let me have a look. Or just first of all, let me complete the code. Then I will debug this with full satisfaction. Disposables dot add, and we need to provide it the content. Okay, I think so. I have some error from here, right? Let me try to correct the code. Okay, we are good. Yep, this is the whole code. I think so I misplaced some brackets or something just like that. Okay, now what else we want is to have a override function on clear, means whenever the method is cleared, we want to clear our disposables. Now let's understand the whole concept, that what is the use of this whole view model. Okay, let's get started. First of all, I think so you know this, the work of this state, and then we should worry about this content type. So this is like to manage the type of content which is currently being selected. This initially starts with the movie as a default and expose the immutable versions to the observers. Like we will use this immutable one inside our UI part. Then what we have is basically a disposable. This is a container for managing the RX Java subscription. As I already told you, this is just like a container. Okay. Then we have a public method, like we have this thing to set the content type. So whenever we are going to shift the tabs from the top bar, so whenever we are going to shift the bars like from movies to TV shows, we are going to use this method to trigger our selection. Like when the content type is movie, we shall load the content for movie, and when the content type is like TV shows, then we are going to load the TV shows. As you can see, we are using this over here to load the type. Okay, then let's have an understanding about this load content method. First of all, the loading state has been set over here. Then what we are doing, that we are setting up a method, we are calling the get movies and TV shows use case. Then we are using our rx java method to make a subscriber, means this scheduler.io shows that this whole process shall be executed on the background thread, no UI thread should be blocked. Okay, then after we are observing our main thread. After that, this is a success handler. This whole block is like a success handler. So whenever we are getting a TV shows or movie, so we are storing it inside the lambda. This movie and TV shows, we are storing these two things inside the lambda, and then we are handling the error over here. Okay, and then at the last, we are trying to clean up the disposable. So whenever the view model is destroyed, this cleanups the rx java subscriptions. So this basically prevents any sort of memory leak. Okay, so this was the whole concept of this disposable and this home view model. Now the only part which is left is to have our nav graph and our main UI screens, which are this detail screen and home screen. Its code is going to be a little bit of lengthy, and meanwhile let's remove this disposables and come preview. We don't need it actually. And then inside this also, let's try to remove these things. We don't need it. Just remove this part till where it is. Yeah, let's remove this part. What we want to have is, we want to have a surface, and inside that surface let's have a modifier. Fill the maximum size, and let's provide it some color. Color equal to material theme. Yep, that's what we want. And then we will set up our navigation page over here. Okay, so we want to set up the navigation screen, like whenever this main activity, since it is a launcher activity, so whenever this thing is called, we want to start our watch app navigation. Now you might wonder what this method is. So this is basically going to navigate the user to the home screen actually, and display the home screen. So where we need to define it, we need to define it inside our navigation graph. So let's come inside our navigation graph and have a composable actually. Let us remove this and annotate it with composable. Inside this composable, let's have a method which is watch app navigation. Okay, so this was the method actually which we are using. Let's use this now. Now what this method will basically do is to redirect the user to the home screen which we actually want. So let's have this initialized. Let's have the nav controller setup. Nav controller will be of type nav host controller is equal to, remember the nav controller. Yeah, that's what we want. Let's import the things which we already need. Okay, I think so we need to add the dependencies for this. We have not added the dependency yet. Let me just have a look once again. Yeah, we need to add the dependency for this. Okay, let's come inside our dependency block. I thought so I have added a dependency, but actually I think so I skipped it. Okay, so let's get to the project mode. Yeah, I don't think so I have the dependency yet. Let me have a look for the dependency of the navigation. Okay, this is giving me suggestion actually. I can import it from here. Yeah, add the dependencies and import. Let's use this one. Let the dependencies be added. It will take a little bit of time. And meanwhile, let's add the dependency also for this nav controller. Then we will be able to use these two inside our applications. Let me have a look. Yeah, we can see these two dependencies are added now. Okay, I think so. That's pretty much we want. Now let's add the dependency for this. This is almost done. Yeah, this is downloading the dependencies. Yeah, now we can use the nav controller over here. Now what we are going to do is to set up our nav host first of all. Inside this nav host, let us set up our nav controller. The nav controller should be equal to nav controller. After that, what we want to have a start destination. The start destination shall be screen dot home dot root. We will add the root to the home screen inside this screen folder. Let me show you. Inside the screen folder, we will add the root, how we are going to navigate to our home page. Okay. Now let's try to do this. Let's come inside our screen folder. Then here let's create a data object. Let us first convert it into a sealed class since it is not going to child. This is a sealed class and let's have a val. The val is root. The root shall be of type string. Now inside this what we want a data object of home which is of type screen. Yeah, this is what we want, and then we need to have another data object. This data object will be called details. And this is of type screen. Then detail dot, actually we want content ID over here. Pass the content ID. Let me just correct this thing. Now after that we want to have a method which is create the root, and then it will redirect the user to the required screen. Let's provide the content ID. The same, change the content ID to string. And yeah, this is pretty much what we want. Now let's try to see, is there some sort of error? Okay, remove this. Yeah. Now let's come inside our nav graph. Now you can see, let's have a start destination which is screens dot home dot root. Now this thing is pretty aligned. Okay, so now we have completed this nav host. These two things are required. We have provided the starting screen. The starting screen shall be our home screen. Now let's come inside this and simply set up the composable which we require. This will be our composable, and the composable shall be screen home dot root. So like we are going to configure this screens dot home dot root. After that what we need is basically our home screen. And let's have the modifiers like to navigate to the details, means whenever the user taps on this, we want to navigate to the home screens like that. But in our case, the landing screen is only home screen, so we want to directly navigate to the details. Now navigate to details, let's provide it the content ID, and after providing it the content ID, let's have the nav controller to navigate it. Yeah, this is what we want. Nav controller, navigate to detail screens. Yeah, let us import this composable and import the home screen, and to navigate to details. Yeah, then let's have another composable which is like to redirect the user to the detail screens. Okay, this is like the navigation page. This is defining us like everything which are required for us upon the tap. Like when we tap on the home screen, where should be navigated, and when we tap on the any item, so where we shall be navigated. So this is like when we want to navigate to the home screen, sorry, details part, with the help of the ID. Let it be inside the navigation host. Actually, I have by mistake implemented this outside the nav host. Yeah, here import the detail screens. The name it is detail, not s. Now let's import the detail screen. Now we need to set up our home screen and detail screen. We have set up the navigation too. Now let's come upon the home screen first of all, or let's see, yeah, let's have the home screens first of all set up. Where it is, yeah, home screen. So the first thing this home screen require is the view model. View model shall be provided by Koin, and the another thing which we require is this method which we have implemented over here, navigate to details. So let us provide it over here and make sure to convert it to the function, and let us have the @composable annotation so that it is a composable. Now we have no error related to it. So first of all, let's have the val state and content type. So from where they will be coming? They will be coming from our home view model. We need the state and content type to display inside our screen. Okay, so let's have them. First of all, we have this thing. Let's import the collect as state. Okay, now the next thing which we shall want is to have the column. Inside that column, we will display the home top bar. Like at the topmost part, we want to have a column that will display the home top bar. Then after that, we want to show the content. Okay, that shall be like some animated content. We want to have some sort of animation while displaying the content. So the first thing inside the column is our home top bar. Then after that, we want to show the whole content. Okay, so let's have a column first of all. So let's have the column. Let's provide it some sort of, no, actually we don't need it. We need to have the home top bar. Yeah, we will need this home top bar. Let's import this home top bar. Then what we need actually inside this home top bar, on selected type, like what shall be the selected type of the user, like movies or TV shows. Then after that, what we need is the view model. We need to select the selected type with the help of the view model. Like we are informing the view model that yeah, we are using the selected type as movie, then you should display the movie, and when we are using the selected type as TV show, then you shall display the TV shows. This was inside home top bar. Now the next thing which we require is inside this column is animated content. Yeah, this one, animated content, and let's set the target state. target state to the state. And then what else we need? We need to have a lambda which is current state. Let's import this current state, and we shall have the when statement to start our methods. Okay, inside this current state, when the current state is loading, then we need to show the shimmer effect, and when the content screen is in success, we need to show the content. And inside content we have one more when statement, like when the content type is movie, we want to show the movies, and when the content type is TV shows, then we want to show the TV shows. Okay, so let's have the setup. Well, current state, let's pass the current state over here. So when the current state is home state dot loading, then what we want to do is to show the shimmer effect, like the content is being loaded right now. Let's import the shimmer effect. Why I'm not able to use this? Just a minute, let me have a look. Okay, I think so I missed the composable. Okay, we have shimmer content. Okay, or let it be shimmer effect. Now we can import this. Now when we have the shimmer effect set as loading, now when the content screen is like home state dot success, in this success one we have two things, like this. When we have success state, we are getting the two contents, like one of the content is the movies and the one of the content is TV shows. Then let's have this content val content, and this val content is another when statement. Inside this when statement we will have the content type, and when the content type dot movies, let us import this content type, then we want to set the current state as movie, and when the current state is like TV shows, current type is TV shows, then we want to show the TV shows. Okay, then let's have a content grid actually, which will show the content. Let's pass the content over here. The content is equal to content. Then what we need is on item click, like whenever the item is clicked, we want to navigate to the details. On item clicks, we want to navigate to details. Let's just remove this, we don't need this. Then what we want to have an error state, like this was our success state handling, as you can see over here. Then after that we want to handle the error state. The error state is pretty simple. We want to show over this error content over here. Let's import the error content, and this is good to go. Let me see the error. I think so we need to pass the contents over here, or just a second. On navigate to details, like this is the content which we actually want, and this is content. Okay, just a minute. Yeah, now the error is resolved. So when we have the success state, we want to have the content grid, which is this method, which is like a lazy vertical grid, and then we want to show the methods inside this. We are passing it to the content, like the TV shows and their name, like how we are going to display it. It have all the logic, and inside the lazy grid. So whenever the item is clicked, what we want to do, we want to navigate to details. And how we are going to navigate to details, that our this nav graph knows very well. Okay, now we can see there is no error on this home screen one. Now what we need to do is to set up this screen. Let me show you this detail screen. Now let us come inside this detail screen. This shall be our last thing which we are going to configure. After this, our project is going to be finished, and then let's have a look at how this thing looks. The first thing which this detail screen requires. Now how we'll come to know that how this detail screen shall be what these things shall be required. We require content, we require the content type, and then what we require, we want what when we want to navigate back, we want to pop that thing from the stack. Okay, so what we want is these things. Let me just show you. I want a content, I want a content ID, then type, then when on the navigate back, then I want to have my view model, which is my detailed view model provided by Koin view model. Now similarly, let me come to my detail screen where it is, detail view model. Now this detail view model have a state, and then we have a method which is load content. So first of all, let us set up the state and collect it as a state over here. Let's import this method. Now after that, what we want to do is to have a val scope. This val scope will be equal to, remember the coroutine scope. Yeah, this is what we want. Let's import this. After that, we want to have a snack bar host state. I have just named this variable val snack bar host state, means just it will remember the hosting state. Okay, yeah, this is what we want. Let us try to import this thing instead. Like that, we want a remember, and what we want to remember, we want to remember the snack bar host state. Okay, now the next thing which we want to have is a val, whether it is a movie or whether it is the TV show. So we want to provide it the basic, like initially it is movie, then we will configure this later on. First of all, we want to have a launch effect, like we want to handle the error messages. So how this thing shall come to us, let us have a method which is this launch effect. This launch effect is provided to us by Android Compose method. This launch effect basically hosts the snack bar host state and shows us the error message what we have. Let me copy this line and paste it over here. Change the variable name. Now that's nice. That's what we want. So we have this error handling messages over there. Then if we are able to handle the error, then what next we want? We want to show the content when the content ID arrives. So we again have a launch defect. This, let me have it over here. Yeah, after this. So when the content ID arrives, we want to inform the view model that yeah, we have the content ID now. Now please load the content for us, and we know how this thing is going to the repository, then API, and load the content for us. Okay, so we have provided this method. What it required a content ID, and we required a boolean. Initially I provided it to is movie, like yes, we want to load the content for movie, and later on when we goes to TV show, we will be able to show it the TV shows. Okay, then next thing what we want is to have a scaffold which will basically cover all the things and shows us the animated content. Okay, and then what we want to have is all the composable method, which is like detail top bar, and then we will have a loading indicator, and then we have an error screen over there. Okay, now the first thing is like an error screen which we want to have, like when there is some sort of error, we want to change the whole display to a error screen. Suppose the detail screen is like when we are showing a message, but when there is some sort of error, then we want to show the whole error screen. So what we want is a column, and inside that column we want to fill the maximum size, and then we have provided it some horizontal and vertical alignment. Then we want to show a text. Whatever the error message is there, whatever the error messages arrives with this, we are going to simply display it over here. Then we have a spacer, and then we have button which does a retry thing. Now we will come to know that how this retry things occur. This was a very simple composable. As you can see, we have this error screen. We are providing it the message what we are getting. Then we have an on retry method, which on tap starts to load the data from the API once again. Like it is going to trigger the load data content, like it is going to load content once again. Okay, then what we have a loading indicator composable. This is also very common, which we know. This is a loading indicator. We have a val alpha, remember the infinite transition state dot animate to flow. So you can use this thing, like we can use this composable whenever we require a transition, whenever we require a loading indicator, or when we require a circular progress bar. So yeah, we can use this. Okay, now the next thing which we want to use is, actually this is like the color of the indicator, and here we have initialized our circular progress bar and provided it over here. Okay, now the next thing which we want is to have a composable, which is this detail top bar. Let's have it. This will be our composable function detail top bar. Okay, now inside this what we need actually is a very simple method. First of all, let us provide it the state so that it can come to know that in which state we are dealing. The state will be of type detail state, and then what we need on navigate back. Yeah, now let's come inside. Now come inside this method, and what we want is a large top app bar. Okay, this will be our the top app bar which we require. Okay, so the first thing inside this is we want to display the title. Okay, then afterwards we need to display a text. Then afterward we want to have an icon, like detail icons, what we want any icons to display. Let me just explain just a minute. Let's have the large top bar first of all, and provide it the title, and the title shall be a little bit complex. We want to have a val which is title, and title shall be state as default detail screen success. Okay, just let me complete the code. Okay, it gave me some suggested code. That's what I actually need at this one. Then after one, if we have this thing, then okay, then we will use our else operator, then provide the details over here. I think so there is some error. Let me see. Yeah, we don't need to close it actually. Now this thing is done. Then let's have a text. This text will simply display this title. Okay, and then we are simply closing our title block. So yeah, we have our text box. Now we are simply displayed our title. Now what we want is to have, like, this was our title part. Now after this title, what we want is a navigation icon. It is suggesting me some code. Yeah, let's import this. This will be pretty basic. Let us import this bitmap one. Yeah, then let's have this one. This is on navigate back arrow, like we are trying to navigate when we are trying to navigate back, so we are having an arrow button at the left top corner to navigate back. So that is what we want. Like when the detail screen opens, we want to have a detailed top bar over there, which initially brings the user back to where he was, like in the home screen from the detail screen. Then next thing what we can have is some sort of color, and we can then modify it with the help of modifier. In modifier, we will simply provide it a little bit of padding, that's it. So after this thing, yeah, we need to close this. Just a minute. We have close this over here, and okay, I think so. I accidentally closed this button somewhere which where it is not required. Just a minute, let me have a look. Here is this for image button.
Okay, now it is done. This was for the navigate icon. Okay. Description type back, then we have this thing closed. Then after this thing, let's have the colors and the modifiers which we actually want. Okay, now that error was resolved. Let's have the experimental API for this method. Like when we want to have the colors, we want to have the top app bar defaults, large top bar app colors. Like this is provided to us by this API, which is currently in developing stage. So we have opt the annotation experimental material 3 API. Okay. So this thing is also completed. Now what we want to have is like come over here in the animated content after launching this thing. Okay, after this thing what we want to have is to manage all these things, like when we want to show this, when we want to show the loading indicator, and when we want to show the error screen. It is pretty obvious when the detail home screen state is in error, then only we want to show the error state. Okay, so let's have a scaffold. Inside the scaffold, first of all, let's provide it few things. The first thing is top bar, then we want to have the snack bar host. Okay, yeah, we want to have these things. Then inside this method what we want is to have a box initially. This is an overlays layout. Inside this box I have to have some sort of modifiers. Let me add them. And what modifiers I actually require are these. You can just copy the same modifiers which I am just copying. Okay, let me see what's the error actually. I haven't imported box, I guess. Yeah, just a minute. We have the scaffold, then we have, okay, I missed a lambda which is basically going to have this thing. Okay, now after this lambda we want to have our box setup. Yeah, now we have things set up. This things basically ensures that the content isn't stuck at the center, and we have added some margin also to our box. Inside this box only we will show our all the content. Let me just see why this thing content alignment is showing me error. This thing should not show me error. Okay, just a second. Let's remove this comment and initialize our animated content inside this. Yeah, so let's initialize our animated content. Inside this animated content, first of all we want to provide it the target state, and then what we want is a little bit of transition of fade in and fade out. Okay, we have provided it a little bit of transition. Let's opt the experimental API. Now after this what we want, let me just have a look. We have initially this transition state, fade in and fade out, and this is like literally covered. Okay, this thing is extra, I guess. Yeah, now this thing is clear. Now inside this what we need to have the current state, and according to the current state we are going to display the success, loading or error state. Like this is the main method from where we are going to display all of the things. Okay, so we have the lambda current state. So whenever the current state is loading. Let me have the when block initialized. So whenever the current state is detail state dot loading, what we want to do, we want to show our loading indicator. Okay, and when the detail screen is in success state, detail screen dot success, what we want is to show our detail content screen. Detail content, let me have my detail content screen. Yeah, this one, detail content, and we need to provide it the content what we actually want to show. So the content will be current state dot content. Current state dot content means whatever the current state we have acquired, we will just display that, whether it is a movie or TV show. Then what we need to have a modifier which is equal to fill the maximum size. Modifier dot fill the maximum size. Okay, this was for the success state. And when the details state dot error means when we have the error state, we want to simply show our error condition, right? Let's have the lambda and let's show the error screen. And in this error screen, what we want is basically to have passed the message, like we want our message over here. Okay, we want to pass our message. Let me show you. Okay, we want to have a message, then we want to have on try method. Like what should happen when we click on try? The data shall be fetched again from the repository and then API, right? So inside this error state, what we have, sorry, error screen, we need to provide it the message. Let me just bring my mouse here. Yeah, the message should be equal to the current state dot message, means whatever the message we shall receive, we will be able to show that. And then what else we need is on retry method. On retry method, we will simply launch a navigation scope. Let me just show you. We will use scope dot launch, and what we want to launch, view models dot load the content, and let's pass the content ID and whether it is a movie or not. So this was it. Like when we want to show the error state, we want to show the error message, and how that error message shall be shown is handled by this method. We have a column, and inside that column we have the text to show the error message. Then we have a button which says on retry, and upon click on this method, this should retry. And how this retry will be occurring, we will launch a scope which will simply go to the view model and trigger the load content method inside our detail screen. Okay, so this was it inside this which we have. This was the detail screen setup, and we have set up our home screen also. Now I guess we have everything completed. Just for an instance, I can have a check whether I have provided the permission. Yeah, I have no permissions also. Let's try to connect my local device and then run this application. Okay, the Gradle is being built. Let me just have a look. The whole code is in the GitHub. I will show you the GitHub link. It will be provided in the description also. You can refer it from there. Okay. This is going to take time because we are trying to build it after a very long time, or for the very first time. Then this thing takes time to build. Give it some time. It actually depends upon our system also, and amount of memory and everything else. So yeah, just let's give it time. Make sure you have implemented your application name over here, right? We have various font method also. We can use them. Okay, this is launching on device. It is almost done. Now let's have a look. Okay, we can see our movie screens. That is good. We can see our everything. Let me click on any movie. I can see the movie details also. Let me go to the TV shows. Yeah, I can see the TV shows also. I can see the TV shows, and great. Let me turn off my internet and then let's have a look that how these things respond. Okay, failed to load the content. This was our error screen message that we are failed to load the content, and when we press on retry, we have a snack bar also which says the name. Okay, that is what we actually needed. Okay, now let's go to the TV show. This was inbuilt. Let's fetch the same thing for this. Okay, great. Now let me provide it the internet, and then let's try to retry this once again. Okay, now I'm connected. Let me retry. I saw my loading screen and it got disappeared very well. Okay, so this is what we actually want. What else we can do is like have a movie with a little bit of lengthy description so that we can scroll. Actually, we have a scroll view here, like vertical scroll is enabled here. So we can actually scroll and see the content if it is little bit of lengthy. Okay, so this was our a very small movie app. I hope so you have learned all the things. My main motive was to make you understand how the things work, like how you can make two synchronous API calls and what is this Koin, and how you can use the dependency injection using the Koin. Okay, this let me show you the repository where all these things are kept. You can simply come to this, come to this URL, which is this github.dev of Winterfell movie app. Let me show you. This is in an association with this Papaya coders. Let me show you. Yeah, so okay, I don't have it right now. I can get it over here. Let me do it in front of you. We can simply import our repository. I have my movie app over here. Let me copy the URL. Let's name it as same movie application, or yep. Okay, great. Let's begin the import, and all of this thing shall be imported inside the repository of Papaya coder section. You can go there and simply retrieve all of the code. I would suggest you to copy the dependencies from there, because if you don't copy the dependencies correctly, then you will face a lot of errors, let me tell you. So make sure that you have the correct versions of the dependencies, and all of your dependencies are not latest. I would suggest you to use the stable dependencies, not the latest ones. Okay, so that's it for this video. The repository has been updated. You can visit there. Make sure to subscribe Papaya Coders and reach us out whenever required. You can reach us there. These are our contact, or you can actually WhatsApp us. So thank you guys. Make sure you subscribe and like the video and hit the bell icon and share this video. Thank you for watching.